Are you ready to get real? Welcome to real estate, the world's loneliest career, where you're always out of balance, unfulfilled, the role models are fake, the numbers unattainable, and you're just supposed to be and do it all. Join self-made millionaire real estate agents, wives, moms, and business owners as we level up, learn from special guests, and elevate and disrupt an entire industry through real education our way.
It is. I keep like dating these every time we start because I feel like we keep saying like things are changing by the minute. March 28th. I don't know how we're almost to April. It's really freaking me out, but here we are. Time flies when the market's
more exciting crap since last week.
Yeah, exactly. We were thinking this week we would talk about how to have difficult conversations with your clients. I think that for the first time in a very long time for us, like longtime agents, and then maybe for the first time ever for newer agents, we're getting difficult conversations on both sides right now. So the last couple of years, it's been difficult conversations with your buyers about what they would have to do in order to get a home, and calling the sellers and just being a hero, right?
Yeah.
Now we are absolutely having difficult conversations with sellers about the house not being what it, worth what it was worth last year, and sitting on the market for longer potentially, or having to price lower to start. Buyers coming in with bigger inspection lists, all this stuff. And then we're also having difficult conversations with our buyers, I feel like in two different ways. One, sometimes we are coming across multiple offers, and so we still have to have that conversation. But I feel like we're also just on the daily having to have this conversation about like, yes, the market has changed a little bit, but it hasn't changed 10, 20, 30%. So no, you can't go in and offer $300,000 less than asking price. And no, you can't ask that they remodel the entire house and replace the roof and the garage floor and the furnace and on inspection, right? So
I mean, you can ask for those things, but it's not received very well.
And I think that's where we're back to practicing skills or learning new skills. Is like the skill of as an agent right now that's most important, in my opinion, is like having these tough conversations. Because if you're not having these tough conversations with your clients right now on the listing side and the buying side, you look like an idiot.
Business is built around tough conversations, and conflict resolution. That's our entire job for the most part, it seems like these days. And so the quicker you get good at those kind of things, the better it's going to be.
I hate it. I mean, I'll just say it. Like, I think everyone hates it. I have met a few people, I'm not going to say that like the conflict, but I have met a few people who are usually men, substantially better at it than I am. But just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can't get better at it. And, I think it's so important right now. Hey, I want to say hi to Greg Fowler. Hi. Greg is amazing. He hosts his own show called Real Estate Titans, where he interviews the most prolific real estate agents across the entire United States. And he also owns Lion Bolt Media, which is a great marketing and kind of PR, I think, company for real estate agents. So go friend Greg if you don't know him. But okay, tough conversations. Let's break it down. Listing side, buyer side, they're coming out of the woodwork right now. Let's start with the listing side. I think the toughest conversation. I'm having a week on this. It's been rough for me. So
I too am having a week on this.
So on the listing side, I think right now the toughest conversations that we are seeing are you got to price right and you got to act right, in my opinion. So I would say the majority of my clients are aware of what's happening in the world. They're watching the news. They're aware that maybe their price has come down a little bit since last year.
Yeah.
For context, I read a national article this morning that said that they believe that the market in the United States is down about 3% from last year. So I think this is where this is getting really confusing, because 3% is a far, far, far cry from a housing bubble popping or a crash. 3% is honestly hardly anything, right? And so I think that's causing problems on both sides because sellers are like, oh, well, it didn't change that much. So do I really have to price right and act right? And buyers are like, oh, it came down 3%. We better stick it to them, So it's so tough right now. But getting them to price right and getting them to act right, I would say the majority of my clients are doing pretty well here. They're understanding that they're going to have to price correctly, that they may not see multiple offers. And if they do, it's just going to be a couple thousand over asking. And they're understanding that they're going to get an inspection objection list.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you seeing from? Yeah. What are you seeing from most people, seller wise?
I mean, I think expectations are very different. The one that I'm dealing with a challenge on right now is an estate with multiple siblings, which is a challenge because they don't all talk to each other and they don't all understand real estate on the same level. So that's fun. But I think that people don't really understand, like they're all trying to get as much as they possibly can for the house. And by doing so, they're like, we need a price at X amount. And I'm like, you can't do that. If you want to price it at that, you're not going to get that amount. And it's going to sit on the market and then you're going to have to reduce the price. Like the pricing strategy right now is such an important conversation. Like it's not something where, you can just say, hey, give me your address and I'll pull some comps from your house. Like you have to physically go and see the house, call the other agents, get feedback from them, figure out exactly what's going on in that market, in that area, before you can even give them a price. Like you need to know the house. And it's just not the same as it was where you can just throw out a range and you're probably going to be covered because the market's crazy and people are willing to pay it. I would much rather set an expectation of a lower number and then get a higher number than the opposite, right? Like why? If you're priced a little bit under, the market will correct itself and come up. If you're priced too high, it will sit and there will be cricket sounds on your listing when people walk in. Like, it's just not like, why would you do that?
So what do you do when you encounter a seller who wants an absolutely asinine price? Are you one of those agents that says like, I won't take a finger quotes overpriced listing? Because I'm not, but.
I mean, I put my foot down and I tell them, if you want the results and I'm going to put my money into this to renovate your house, stage your house, market your house, you're going to listen to me. I'm the expert here, right? I've sold more homes than you. I think it's worth X and this is what we're going to list it for. Ultimately, it is your choice, but it's also my choice whether or not I work with you. So yes, I am that agent and I don't care.
I have, I guess maybe my perspective is a little bit different. Like we run different types of businesses, right? And so there are situations in which I will take a listing that I feel may not sell for the listing price because, in my opinion, most people self-actualize after they go on the market and they sit there for about 1 to 2 weeks. Now, I have extremely strict conversations with them about expectations, so much as even putting in their listing agreement, this is what I believe that the property will sell for. And if you don't see an offer at the price that you want, then you're going to agree to reduce the price by X amount of days to what I say it's worth. And then I let them know the average number of showings they should have a week and the average amount of showings that should turn into an offer. And if we don't hit either of those metrics, then it's time for a price reduction. 99.999% of people I've ever worked with in my whole career will self-actualize, and about a week after market, 2 weeks on market, they'll realize that they are too high, or after some showings and some feedback. I'm stuck with 2 right now, but I don't think we'll ever realize that. I don't know if agents know this, but the statistic is that in a normal market, okay, normal being what real estate has been for a million years since we kept statistics and not what we went through the last 2 to 3 years, 10 to 14% of all your listings as a listing agent should expire. So you don't sell every listing that you put on the market. I know that there are a lot of agents right now that are panicking about listings setting longer than their average days on market were the last 2 years. Unfortunately, that's part of a different market too. There are years in this business where your listings can sit 6 months, and that has no bearing on you as an agent or your pricing strategy. whatsoever. Sometimes that's like just the market, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are significantly underpricing, not like what you're saying and what I'm saying, which is like price it appropriately or perhaps a smidge under.
Yeah.
There are agents out there who are underpricing massively on purpose because they're terrified to have it sit longer than a weekend or terrified to not get above asking, right? Which I think
there's a lot of different types of agents out there right now. The reason why I do it the way that I do it is because I have such a big investment in it in the front end. You know, like I need that house to sell because I don't get paid until it does. And it's not just a commission on the line. You know, I've got sometimes up to $100,000 in renovation costs that I'm coughing up. So I want to make sure that we're priced properly so we can get that money back and, you know, get them more than obviously what their investment was. So that's why I price the way I do. And I have that conversation up front because it's a lot of money on the line. It's a lot of time. And I think that agents are starting to realize their time is more valuable than they maybe used to. I'm not seeing as many realtors just dropping their commission amounts. I think they're having the conversation of it's not me, it's you. And you need to drop the price of your house instead of, you know, I made a mistake and I priced it wrong. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm seeing right now down here.
I agree. So in the event that you do come across a seller who either just will not see reality about where a property should be priced, or you put it on the market and they refuse, because sometimes it doesn't hit. Like sometimes you can really believe in the value of a property and the market doesn't believe in the value of a property.
Right.
That is happening a lot right now because as we go in and out of these like weekly massive changes to interest rates and massive changes in the market, buyer confidence goes up and down, how much they can afford goes up and down. So you really are seeing a lot of situations right now where you can do everything correctly when you put a listing on the market and it still doesn't like hit. So when you have a situation where you have to have a conversation about either reducing the price to start or a price reduction, how do you have that conversation with a seller who just doesn't want to hear it?
I mean, I go back to, why are you selling your house? You know, like have that conversation with them, remind them, you know, you guys are moving to another place. Don't you need this house to sell to be able to buy another house where you're moving to? Like it's 6 in one, half dozen the other. If you're reducing the price here, you're probably also going to be getting the house for a little bit less on the buy side where you're going. So it really is kind of an even out situation. But unfortunately, we have to kind of reevaluate what it is that's driving you and driving your needs to sell. I think that's kind of where I usually go. What about you?
Yeah, I love that. Me too. And I always go back to data. You know, the other listings in this price point are having X amount of showings. We are not having that many showings. That signals we are overpriced. The X, you know, other showings in our price point went under contract in X amount of days. We are sitting double that. That shows we are overpriced. Every piece of your feedback has said we are overpriced, right? So I tend to put together this whole, sometimes I feel like the angel of like housing death, because I'm like, here is this giant package of statistics that says that your house is a piece of shit. Good luck to you. But there are situations where they will not come to Jesus. I've had 3 of them in the last month. So I've had 3 sellers, you know, when I push on the motivation for what their, you know, purposes in selling, they've all said, well, we'll just rent the property and we'll just hold it until the market rebounds, finger quotes. And I'm like, it could be it could be another 10 to 20 years in market cycle for you to try to catch up on that extra 3% that you missed from last year. So do you really, you know, want to chance that? And they're all like, yes, absolutely. They will absolutely rent. So my point is, like, sometimes you will come across people who, no matter what you do, they're not sellers. They aren't willing to do what it takes to sell.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think a lot of those people too are typically the for sale by owner types that have market knowledge, but it's market knowledge that I feel like they get from a Cracker Jack box or like, you know, Google. And it's usually not right. It's usually 6 to 8 months behind. And so when you're giving them data and showing them data, they don't want to see it because they know more than you. So that's a big challenge to overcome, is those types of people. I guess I just come from the school of like, I've only got so many transactions I'm going to do a year, and I don't know that I want to do it with you. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I would say that, the majority of posts that I've been reading in the last week or so have been from agents saying, I don't know what to do. I can't get the seller to reduce the price. I can't get them to act right. I can't get them to do this. I can't get them to do that. Unfortunately, again, 10 to 14% of your listings as an agent should and will expire in a normal market. So sometimes there are listings that you need to either choose not to take or that you're going to have to let go of, because they just aren't going to get to the closing table. I mean, I've got a perfect example of one right now. It has been pulling teeth beyond what I could even express to you for the last 6 months. I have so much money and time in this transaction. It's not even funny, which that is never the metric of anything, right? Like my stuff as an agent doesn't matter, but that is frustrating. And they will not act right. I mean, they just absolutely will not. And I just found out yesterday that their furnace is leaking carbon monoxide so strongly into the house that it's probably should have killed them. And I'm not sure how it didn't. And they knew about it and didn't do anything about it. And now we're supposed to close on Friday. And I mean, at this point, I'm going to have to say, and this is a point where you come to also where you have to say it's this decision or this decision, you choose, right? Like you're either going to have to replace this furnace and here's the dollar amount cost, or you're going to have to deal with the ramifications of not upholding what you agreed upon during inspection and terminating.
Yeah.
And if you don't uphold and you try to terminate, then you're going to end up in court. And those are your choices. Unfortunately, I didn't make the market what the market is. I didn't hide that your furnace is in terrible shape, right? But it's really difficult that's difficult. That's such a difficult conversation to have. I'm dreading having it this morning.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it is. I think right now we're inundated with difficult conversations from every angle. It's not just our sellers when we're during a transaction. Once we get them under contract, then we're going to have a difficult conversation with the appraiser that's going to come in low every time because it's like their religion now, about our market and what's changing. And you're going to have to re-educate them and have that come to Jesus. Like I had one yesterday on a pretty inexpensive house that I felt there were more than enough comps to support the price point. And the appraiser invoked Tidewater, which is on a VA. They said that the house is not worth what we're selling it for. And, I sent more comps and called the appraiser and said, look, did you make a mistake? Are you looking at the wrong address? Because it's pretty blatantly obvious that this house is worth what we're selling it for. In fact, I think we're a little bit low. And would you like a letter from the buyer saying that they think it's a little bit low too? Like we had 7 offers in 36 hours. Like, come on. Like we're back to that market. Like they're just behind. And so we're fighting.
Pushing. Like, they've heard the world for the last 6 months, 8 months. They've heard everyone saying, don't cause a bubble, don't cause a bubble.
Right.
Y'all done fucked up. And now the appraisers are like, well, we better not cause a bubble. So now they're being super conservative.
Right. But now, it's a different struggle every day for realtors. We're fighting something every day. There's always a conflict that we have to resolve. And it's exhausting. So
I think I'm the most exhausted I've ever been. And then on the buyer side, I'm dealing with buyers who I negotiated $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 off the price of the house. And then we get to inspection and they want to ask for the whole inside to be redone cosmetically. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, first of all, no, that's not what an inspection is for. An inspection is for things that are physically wrong with the property condition wise, not cosmetically. And secondly, that's why we negotiated so much money off the price up front. So on the buy side, I feel like I'm dealing with buyers who sellers think their house is worth $5 million and buyers think it's worth $5. And
Right.
it's a really, really tough market because you're arguing all day.
Buyers are like, hey, we're buying a house and it's going to be a brand new house by the time we get through to closing. Like, that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be a home. It's an investment and it's your responsibility to maintain it, not the seller's responsibility. If you ask the seller to fix all of the items that are on your list and they do, guess what's going to happen? They're going to hire the cheapest people they can find to get it done as quickly as possible. And if you're hiring a contractor that's cheap and available, that's a recipe for disaster, just so you know. Like, I would never want those people working on my house, ever. Not on my biggest investment. I wouldn't have them working on my car. I wouldn't have them, working on my house. I wouldn't have them working on anything that I really valued and cared about. So why would you do that? Why would you expect somebody else to pay for your property? I understand the interest rates are higher. I mean, you can ask them to give you concessions to help buy it down to make it more affordable for you, but it's not their responsibility to do all of these things. And it's really shitty to go to an inspection and then have a buyer try and renegotiate the contract, or a buyer's agent renegotiate the contract at inspection. That's not what they're for.
No, and they are for, and that's another point with sellers right now. Like I was just talking about the freaking furnace, right? We are not in a market anymore. And these particular sellers are upset because they feel like they dropped their price so low. Unfortunately, to me, their price is still $20,000 to $30,000 above any comp that has sold in the last 4 months. And if it wasn't a cash transaction and they'd had an appraisal, they would be $20,000 to $30,000 less than where they are right now. And they're furious that means that they've had to do some repair items. And, unfortunately, it's not my fault or the buyer's fault that they haven't done maintenance to the home since they've lived there.
Exactly.
So,
it's always those, by the way. It's never the people that have maintained their home and done upgrades. It's always the people that haven't done shit. And 10 years later, they expect the house to be worth a ton when they haven't put any money into it themselves. Okay.
correct. So, yeah, I mean, there's what I would consider unreasonableness all the way around because, these buyers asked for 2 items that were absolutely health and safety. And the sellers absolutely, we're like, no, we're not doing it. It doesn't matter right now where you price the house, unless you're in a market where you're really seeing multiple offers, you are going to have to do some things at inspection. And that's a conversation you got to have with them up front now too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a hell of a lot easier to have the hard conversations up front than it is in the moment, because I think a lot of real estate agents, especially coming off of a couple months where agents have had a really hard time, I think they have the tendency to just go in and be the yes man.
Oh, for sure. Especially if they know they're up against another agent for the listing. All of a sudden, all of those big objections and those things that really do happen during a transaction are not discussed because they don't want any of the bad stuff to leak out into a super fun conversation about how much money they're going to make them.
I would prefer to not take the listing and have those conversations up front.
Right.
Then take it and
Yeah.
have to be in a knockdown, drag out fight later down the road. Now, I will say the couple deals that I'm really struggling with are leftovers from the end of the year last year. And so that was where we saw the sharpest decline and the biggest amount of movement in the market. And so new listings and new clients, I think, are coming on a little bit more aware. But, we'll work through those old ones. But I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the year.
Right. I mean, if we knew, then we would be very, very rich. But we don't know. So we're going based on what we see now. Something else I'm seeing a lot of is sellers reaching out to agents while they're under contract with their current agent and negotiating a future listing because they're unhappy because their house has been sitting on the market. But when you walk into their house, you see that it's completely unfinished and no care has been really taken to show this house in its best possible light. It's March, almost April. If your real estate photos are featuring a Christmas tree, you are a problem. That's not how you present your home. But I'm seeing that a lot. I'm walking into houses that are filthy and disgusting, and people thinking, let's just throw that shit on the market and call it a day. That ain't gonna fly. I just don't know what happened, like when people stop taking pride in their properties. Like, I feel like that's definitely prevalent right now.
Well, I think that I know what had happened the last couple of years. People got lazy as shit on the agent and the client side. The clients absolutely could just throw up the biggest piece of shit on planet Earth and it would sell quickly. And agents didn't even have to put any money into their listings.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem is now you do. And they're afraid to put money into their listings right now because agents have just come off a couple rough years months financially, right? Mm-hmm. So more of them are back to doing cell phone photos.
Yeah.
Not the right type of photography, not the right type of things that they need. I mean, we've talked about this before. If you cannot, and like, we've been there. We're not trying to be judgy. We've totally been there in our careers before. If you cannot represent a property the way that it needs to be represented, and you cannot spend the money that it's going to take to get that on the market in the correct way, then you need to not take a listing, or you need to borrow the money from someone else.
Or co-list it with somebody that can and learn. You know, I literally sat in that future listing appointment with them, and they were like, what would you say to us if we fired you? I was like, first of all, I would tell you to fuck off. Because here's the thing. If I'm putting all that money into your house, there's no way it's going to be sitting for the wrong amount of time. Like, I walked into your house and I gave you a list of 15 things that you needed to do to fix it before you put it on the market. And I was like, number one is you need to take pride in your house. This is all going to fall on you. Your agent's not going to come over and make your bed for you when you're going to show it. I'm here right now, and you called me to come here, and your house is a fucking mess. Why is that? Why is your fireplace not complete? Why are these things not done? Like, you know, you're selling your house right now, right? And it's $700,000, and your fireplace doesn't have tile around it. Like, what is wrong with you?
The last couple of years made people crazy lazy. I feel like that's, I don't know, you know, and then those are the same people like we're talking about that are super upset when they're not getting tippy top dollar. Well, it is not that market anymore. And we are not the ones that chose to list your property not in that market. But I mean, those are tough conversations to have. Like, how do you straight out say that to someone? Do you just say it to them? What do you say?
I do. I usually tell them you've got a couple of different choices. You can either invest the money or work with somebody that can to make the repairs to your house so that it shows properly. Or we can take it off the market and you guys can save some money and figure out what your priorities are. Do you want to sell the house and move? If you do, then you need to make the house as nice as it was at least when you bought it. Put it back together, for God's sake. You know, if you can't do that, then what are you doing? Like, I'm not going to put you into another investment that you can't take care of. I'm just not going to do that. So I mean, I'm honest. I'm brutally honest with people. I think probably too much, but that's who I am. I don't ever get told that you didn't tell me. So,
yeah, I mean, I think you have to right now in whatever way that you can. I mean, you got to really work on having those tough conversations, dig deep, deal with it, take a Xanax before you call them if you have to. I'm not really sure, right? But like, you're not going to get around tough conversations right now. You're either going to be dealing with buyers who are completely unrealistic or sellers who are completely unrealistic, agents who are completely unrealistic, like agents who have one listing that went into multiple offers, and so they think that everything is like perfect again.
Right.
And then on their next listing, they substantially overprice it and they have no idea what's happening, right? Like agents who have never explained an inspection objection list to their clients before in their career.
Yeah.
Agents who've never seen a low appraisal in their career, right? Like, it seems like it's just tensions are running super high. Everyone's pissed off. And like you said, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. I mean, I think that at this point, people are desperate because a lot of them haven't had closings this year yet. And now they've got stuff under contract and they think that all of a sudden they're like the best negotiator on the planet and they're going to get their clients to slam a good deal because they need the referrals. And I think that they're just kind of talking out of their ass right now. And that's happening a lot. Like, I have a listing that incidentally just had the appraisal issue on that. I called the appraiser and I was like, I don't know where you're getting these numbers from, but on that same house, you know, I let the other agent know, the buyer's agent know that, hey, we've got multiple offers on this house. And in fact, we also have 2 backup offers on this particular property. Both of them have waived the inspection and their offers are higher than yours. And you still gave me an inspection objection list that looks stupid. Like, why would you do that? Do your clients not want the house? They've already paid for the appraisal. They've paid for inspection. They paid for all of this stuff. Just know that this is what you're competing against, but why am I still getting that kind of reaction? Like, why are you not listening? Why can't you talk to your clients and let them?
Because I think that's the other thing is that's a tough conversation you need to be having up front. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Right now, I'm telling my clients every single house, every single scenario is completely different. So here's what I think will happen, but you need to be aware that that's a generalization and we can't generalize right now because it is, and I've seen this, right? So it's really tricky. I've gone weekends, the last couple of weekends where we look at house number 1 with my buyers and I could get them $75,000 off and whatever the hell they want done on inspection. And it'll probably appraise lower and we'll get more money off of it. And then I look at another house, second house, and we would have to pay over asking. Same buyer. Across the street, houses across the street from each other. So you've got to be so careful with generalization right now, because what happens when you tell them that they can get a great deal on everything? And then you see house number 1 and it's true, and house number 2, it's not true. And then you have to go back to them and say, just kidding, on this one, you're going to have to go above asking. That's when they're going to show up like crazy people.
Yeah. Well, and God forbid the interest rates dip a tiny bit, because then everybody comes out of the woodwork, and then people are definitely overpaying for houses because the interest rate gives them more buying power.
And we have no inventory still. Hi, Brianne. Brianne says, I have 4 listings coming up. All the sellers are disappointed in the pricing, but have accepted that it's not the market it was when they bought 2 years ago to be getting crazy over asking. 3 out of 4 of these are moving out of state. I just like, great job, Brianne. So proud of you for having those conversations up front. This does blow my mind though. Like, when did the expectation become that you'd make a couple $100,000 in 2 years? That's fucking
I think it happened about 4 years ago. So
crazy. And to everyone like Brianne's clients, my clients, Angela's clients who might be watching this and are disappointed in your pricing, we done told y'all to sell. When, during the height of the crazy, when we said this is not normal and won't last forever. The majority of my clients, I'd say almost 100% are going out of state too. And I will tell you, and Brianne, tell me if you're seeing this too. At first, I was saying to them, well, hopefully prices will be a little lower where you're going, and then, it'll even out. But what's happening is all of my sellers are going to areas that are less expensive. Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, right? And because those areas are less expensive, those markets are fucking exploding. So they're actually selling for less than they would like here in Colorado, and sometimes paying over asking there. So
right. They're getting you somewhere else. They're getting you in the property taxes. Like, yes, Texas, you can get $1 million house that's incredible, but your property taxes are so prohibitive that you might as well be buying a $10 million house. Like, they're getting you somewhere. It's not like all of a sudden you move somewhere and it's free all of a sudden. It's not that doesn't happen. So
I basically just feel like the queen of disappointment. And it is, I will say, it's very sexy. It feels very easy for me right now to slip into like, okay, I'm going to this listing presentation. I know that the house is worth 400. Why don't I tell them to list it at 325? And then we'll just end up with multiple offers and it'll sell above asking. I cannot do that. And you need to be very careful doing that. The other thing that appraisers have been told to crack down on is the reverse, which is actually agents who underprice to overinflate property value on purpose. They want to see fair market value, right? Not overinflated pricing because you priced it too low on purpose. So,
right. So if you think the comps are saying it's worth 400, what are you listing at? What are you recommending a list price of?
I would probably say 375 to 399.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say 375 to 400. Yeah, because that's the price points that people are looking at. Again, the pricing strategy is so important. If I see another freaking house, I swear to God, listed at like 398, 999, or 965, stop fucking doing that. Like, do you guys realize you're losing so many people can't see that house? It's so stupid. Like, don't do that shit. God.
Brianne says, yes, all her people are going to less expensive states as well. So congratulations, Midwest. You go and get a boom. But
Brianne's in my market. So hi, Brianne.
Yeah, it's tough right now. I have never ended days feeling so exhausted in my life. And I really do. It's just because you're getting the shit kicked out of you all day long. But I mean, that's why you make the big bucks. That's why not every agent is equal. That's why not every agent survives. Yeah.
I mean, we're starting the day right now at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not getting home until 8, 9 o'clock sometimes. That's pretty common for me right now. And weekends, that doesn't mean shit. I don't know why realtors are like, oh yeah, I can't wait for the weekend. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, we don't get a weekend. I haven't had a day off in like weeks.
I love my mommy. If my mommy is watching this, but my mommy has, for the last 2 months, been calling me every day. Do you want to go walk the dogs? Do you want to go to the gym? Do you want to go shopping? Do you want to go to lunch?
Yes.
She does not call my sister, who's a nurse, and ask these things, because she will literally say, your sister's at the hospital all day. Do you want to go to lunch? And I'm like, I have a job too. And no, not right now. I can't go to lunch right now because I'm spending 18 hours a day it's like a cha-cha. 1 step forward, 4 steps back. 1 step forward, 4 steps back. That's how it feels. It's very, it's tough. And I think, unfortunately, there really isn't anything to do about it besides grow tougher skin through experience and just keep having the difficult. You can't not have a difficult conversation because it's hard.
Yeah.
And that,
otherwise, that conversation is going to get way more difficult, because ultimately what you're going to do is keep pushing it off and not having that conversation, and then it's going to get worse.
this is not like a boyfriend who sucks that you can just live with for 5 years until you find another boyfriend. This transaction's over in 30 days. Like, you're going to have the conversation about something being wrong, right? And it's hard. I also, the other thing I would say is please, 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 for the love of God, be kind to your fellow real estate agents. Like, I can't tell you, I know Angela and I are always big fans in any market of sending flowers and cookies or nice handwritten notes or just saying thank you to agents on the other side, but especially right now, because listen, I have to call and tell my seller about this furnace issue today, but the agent that I just handed an inspection objection to on his listing has it way worse than I do. So I need to give grace in saying, like, I'm really sorry that this is what we're presenting. It's legitimate, and I know it's going to be rough to deliver to your sellers, but how can I help? What can I do? That's, I think, one of my favorite things with agents who act right that's happening right now is over the weekend, a buyer's agent and I on one of my listings were up moving appliances and turning on water and fixing things on a listing together with my sellers and her buyers to get it ready for appraisal, because the appraiser surprised us with a condition issue. So I love seeing everybody working as cooperating brokers right now. There's a lot of love between agents right now, I feel like, if you're doing this correctly. So be kind.
Yeah. And if you're going to send over an objection with 85,000 items on it, at least pick up a phone and warn them that this wasn't like a personal attack, because for some reason, sometimes listing agents do take it personally. They're like, what the hell? Like,
that's such a good point. Yeah. So like this specific situation, the house sat on the market for 8 months, and it was because of where they priced it, but it's also, it doesn't matter the price, the condition of this property, it isn't viable in this market right now. And it was not sold as is. It was not priced where it needed to be sold as is. I know it, the sellers know it, the listing agent know it. And the list isn't thousands and thousands of dollars, right? But when you're paying what is still top dollar for a shitty property, and you go into an inspection and the furnace is so rusted through, it has holes, like it looks like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-year-old furnace because you hot wired a humidifier to it that is leaking water inside it. Like that's legitimate. So I had the tough conversation with my buyers. You're only allowed to ask for legitimate things, but if there's a legitimate list. So then I have to have a conversation with the agent. I'm sorry, but this is a legitimate list. And he may never have presented. There are literally agents by the millions right now in our market who have never presented an inspection list to a seller.
Yeah.
They may need your help. They could at least use you to be nice to them.
Yeah.
Like, try to think about the tough conversations the agent on the other side is having too.
Yeah.
And be nice.
Yep. I think a lot of us forget that we are cooperating, and we're supposed to cooperate and try to get this to the closing table if it possibly can. But that takes a lot of education for our clients on either side about the market and what's going on and what to expect and how are we going to get through this. Here's the things that we're willing to do. What are you willing to take off your list? Like, it just needs to be a real conversation, and it doesn't need to be a text. Like, pick up a phone.
Angela is one of my favorite examples of an agent, like literally in the world, because she does have that complete no bullshit personality in a way that I do not, and I wish that I had. She is able to tell me as a friend, that's not okay, or you need to do this. She's able to say that to her clients, right? In a way that isn't, I'll sit on it until it explodes and then it comes out mean. Angela's able to say it in kind of like a velvet hammer way in which it's not mean, but she is able to be one of the most strong people with like boundaries on her business that I've ever seen. And at the same time, agents love her. She has great relationships with the agents on the other side. I've been in the car with her millions of times where she's sending someone flowers, or she's telling them thank you, or they're working together on a situation, right? So just because business is tough right now and you're having to hold a harder line doesn't mean that you have to be nasty, is my point.
Right.
Learn how to have hard conversations without being nasty.
Yep.
Because there's a difference between
the secret sauce in our business, right?
There's a difference between truth and being mean. And I have to call her sometimes. I do, and say, hey, how would you present this so that it's truthful and it's no bullshit and they understand what they have to do, but it's not mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I can be mean sometimes. I just typically am not with my other side of the transaction.
Yeah. So try to give extra grace and be nice to the agent on the other side too right now.
Yeah. If you're getting to the closing table right now, be excited about it. Like, it should be celebrated. You know, I see agents that are closing like 20 transactions a month and like they're not like throwing a party. I'm like, what? Why isn't it fun anymore? Why is it just a transaction? Like, these are really important times that we're in. Like, when people are buying and selling homes right now, like, that's a celebration that needs to be had. You know, like, I'm going to a closing today and I'm so excited. We've worked so hard on this damn house. Like, we're going to celebrate, and mostly because I'm really tired of this house. So
this is funny. I'm going to bring this up, and I don't think we're quite there yet. And I do laugh about the fact that I know that there are markets where, like we talked about, Briam's clients, my clients, where they're going to the Midwest. And so those markets are exploding and you're not seeing this weird market stuff. Yeah. But you also need to learn how to read the room as an agent, because actually the other day I was sitting in a closing where in the room next to us, the buyers and sellers in Colorado close in the same room almost all the time, except for after COVID. But the buyers and sellers were in the closing room together, and the sellers were losing money. They were bringing about $20,000 to the table. They were in trouble. They were one of those forbearance sellers. And the buyer's agent brought in champagne, and they were sitting at the closing table, and I could hear and see them across the hallway drinking champagne and cheersing each other, while this woman and her husband and their kids that were in there lost their home and had to bring tens of thousands of dollars to the closing table. So you are going to start seeing situations with foreclosures, forbearance,
short sales.
Actually, I can't find the statistic. I'll go back and post it in this post, but I just read yesterday the number of people who are 90 days late on a mortgage payment in the United States. It would blow your fucking mind. It's coming, right? So the government is trying to be more gentle with it because they know we've had a rough time, but it's coming. So you need to start to learn how to deal with situations where people on the other side may be going through some stuff.
Yeah. I would say especially on new builds, because what people don't remember on new builds is a lot of builder lenders will not escrow the proper amount of taxes, which we all know are going to be pretty high on a new build. They typically are anyway. And a year or two down the road, when they finally do get assessed with the house and the property, they're going to owe a shitload of money in taxes. And I've seen builders do this year after year. And these are the people that are in trouble now, because all of a sudden their payments are going up by $400 or $500. They weren't expecting that because their agent didn't prepare them. Yep. Their lender didn't prepare them, because that lender does not represent them. Those builder lenders are not going to be doing what's in your best interest. They're doing what's in the builder's best interest because they're paying them.
And combine that with food prices, gas prices, cost of living right now. People are, I was blown away. I'm not even sure that we saw the number of people 90 days late on mortgages that I just saw back in 2008. Mm-hmm. So shit's coming. And you are going to have to learn how to give grace. And I feel like if there was one word to sum up our whole talk today, it's grace, period. Grace for yourself in having to deal with flip-flopping markets all over the place. Even like I said, you know, with clients, this house is this and this house is this. You know, so grace for yourself, grace for the agent across the transaction for you, and grace for your clients, because I'm really frustrated about this furnace issue because they lied to me about it and they hid it. But I still need to take a step and give some grace and understand where they're coming from. Even though where they're coming from isn't correct, I can get how last year they would have been another $100,000 positive, and this is a big gut check for them.
Yep. But that also doesn't mean that they can lie about their furnace or withhold anything and
Nope.
put somebody else in a worse situation. Absolutely.
Nope. Like I said, I think that graceful velvet hammer is a really, any advice on where to learn how to get that skill if that's not something you're naturally?
The military? I don't know. I think that it's just over time, I am just setting more boundaries big time, not just with, my clients, but with other realtors. I'm setting them with everyone, businesses, everything. So the more boundaries I set, the less bullshit I'm willing to take. And I think that's been really empowering for me. And I would recommend it highly to everyone.
Maybe one day you'll role play that for us.
Hmm?
Maybe one day you'll role play the velvet hammer with us and teach us how to say things in a firm way that's still kind.
Sounds good. Happy to do it.
Well, I'm sure that by the time we see you guys next Tuesday, things will be dramatically different because it's 2023. Thanks for spending some time with us today. If you have questions, concerns, need anything, holler, and we will see you guys next Tuesday. We love ya.
Bye.
Angela and Lindsay would love to receive your real estate referrals in Colorado. Connect with the Homegirls on social media at